Good morning and welcome to today's program. It's Where Are They Now? Brinks Innovation Competition Luncheon. But before I start, I'd like to make a housekeeping note. This program is being broadcast live over the internet. And for those folks who could not attend here in person, I'd like to mention that you can submit questions during the program by clicking on the live stream button to the right of your screen. And if the button is not there, then click the link that says refresh chat here, and that should then appear. Secondly, the bios of our speakers and panelists are available, as well as handouts from the program. You can obtain those by clicking at the top right-hand side of your screen, bios and more, and you can do that at any time during the program. We are here to celebrate innovation. As the name of our program implies, we will hear today from the winners of last year's Brinks Innovation Competition to see how they're doing now, several months after winning the competition last year. And I'm pleased to see that after several months, they're all up and running and still in business, so we'll hear more about their success later on in the program. And I'd like to make a special note also. We also have the 2009 winner from the innovation competition, Intelligent Generation, here, so thank you for coming. We also have speakers today who will talk about trends in innovation and trends in venture capital funding. So altogether, I think you'll find this a very good and educational program. My name is Jim Naughton. I'll be your host today. I am a partner with the law firm of Brinks, Hofer, Gilson & Leone, and I am chair of its Green Technology Practice Group. Brinks is an intellectual property law firm with offices across the country. Its headquarters are here in Chicago, where we are located now. And Brinks is a sponsor, the sponsor of the Brinks Innovation Competition. We are pleased to be able to work with the Global Midwest Alliance and the other organizations that make it possible. The innovation competition is co-directed this year by Brinks and the Midwest Research University Network. We'll hear more about them later. But before we move on, to put the Brinks Innovation Competition in context, let me explain its background, because some of you may not be familiar with it. It all starts with the Global Midwest Alliance, or GMA. It is a Chicago-based nonprofit organization affiliated with the Economic Development Council of Chicago. And in fact, we have Gail Longmore, the CEO of GMA here, and she'll be around to answer questions later on. The mission of GMA is to bring together business, financial, and scientific resources to encourage and assist technology commercialization in the Midwest. One of the vehicles by which GMA does this is an annual conference called the Midwest Clean Tech Conference. This conference is focused on clean technology, although GMA itself is technology agnostic. And the Clean Tech Conference showcases the best in Midwest products, services, and in the clean tech area. And this is an annual conference. This is the fourth year coming up. So the next Midwest Clean Tech Conference will occur on September 14th here in Chicago. Our next speaker will talk a little bit more about that conference, so I won't belabor that point. But at the conference, you can expect to hear premier speakers on various clean technology topics. There is a lot of networking going on. There are exhibitors there with clean technology services and products. And importantly for this gathering, the Clean Tech Conference is also the culmination of the innovation competition. So the innovation competition, let me explain that. Applicants to the competition should be focused in the clean technology area. They should have a business plan, a sound business plan in place, and ideally they should have already been through an initial round of funding. Then we receive these applications to be part of the program, and we have a panel of expert judges who would then review and evaluate these applications, winnow the field down to 5 finalists who are then invited to present their technology and their companies at the Brinks Innovation Competition as part of this Clean Technology Conference every year. And after the presentations at the technology conference, the 3 winners are named. for that year's innovation competition. So later in this program, the point of this program is you will hear from the winners of last year's innovation competition. And let me just tell you quickly, they are Bioionics from Wisconsin, Ecothermics, an Illinois-based company, and Lumec Control Products, also from Illinois. This year, the format for the innovation competition will be the same. So we're right now in the process of accepting applications from entrepreneurs and emerging companies. The deadline for submitting your applications will be June 28th, after which time our panel of judges will review all the applications and again winnow them down to 5 finalists who will be invited to make a presentation at this year's Midwest Clean Tech Conference, and the top 3 will be announced as the winners. And as you can tell from my description, really a key to the success of the innovation competition is the judging. And they're often unheralded, so I wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge the judges that we have this year, some of which were judges in prior years as well, and some of which you will see later on today in our panel discussion. So we have 9 judges in total for this year's panel. We have John Banta, who is CEO and Managing Director of Illinois Ventures, Ms. Carrie Breen, Principal from Arsenal Ventures, Tom Churchwell, who is here today, Managing Partner of Midwest Venture Partners, Alan Dines, you will hear from later today. He is President of MRUN, the Midwest Research University Network, and he's also with the University of Wisconsin at Madison. We also have here today Teresa Esser, General Partner of Midwest Capital Partners. Bob Okabe is another judge from RPX Group. He's the co-founder and managing director. We also have Mil Ovan, an entrepreneur, and is Mil here today? He usually introduces himself as a serial entrepreneur. He just can't get away from it. Jason Zilke from the Clean Energy Trust. And finally, Tim Streit, Managing Director and co-founder of Huron River Ventures. So again, I am very pleased and appreciative of all of our judges who volunteer their time in this important function, and we look forward to having another great innovation competition this year. So let me turn you over to the speakers. Our first speaker is Rebecca Reby. She's from GMA, the Global Midwest Alliance, and she will talk a little bit more about this year's Midwest Clean Tech Conference. Please help me welcome Rebecca Reby.
Thank you very much, Jim. And I've been instructed I need to change out my card here so that you all can see who I am. And I appreciate very much the introduction, Jim, as well as the chance to be here. And on behalf of Global Midwest Alliance, can't get it to stick there, and Midwest Clean Tech. All right. Innovation, you see. I welcome you all today. Very pleased to be here to highlight clean tech innovation in relation and as presented at Midwest Clean Tech 2011, now in its 4th year. Midwest Clean Tech 2011 will take place this year, as Jim says, on September 14th at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And it's really a marketplace that allows for connecting and partnering across the clean tech sector and all subsectors of clean tech. Midwest Clean Tech serves as a platform and a catalyst for innovation and for the very technologies that you will be hearing about today. And many of you in the room are well involved with all the exciting things happening in Midwest Clean Tech. We're all interested in what the future holds today, and so just very briefly, I'll set the scene for the panels. Oops. I'm going to shut that down. Sorry. As you know, the trends and opportunities in the clean tech sector are driven in large part by policy. And following on from the President's initiatives to secure America's energy independence, states in the central USA are attempting to address long-term challenges of sustainable development, global environmental issues, and the development of renewable energy technologies. Much of what's happening today in renewable energy, sustainable manufacturing, and clean technology is happening in the Midwest. Although China, as we know, is quickly moving beyond the progress of others, the U.S. is still among the fastest growing of the green and international clean tech markets. Collectively, the U.S. Midwest ranks 5th in global GDP. Fundamental industries of the U.S., agriculture, energy, water, and infrastructure are all interrelated here at the heart of our commercial and industrial region. I believe that these regional fundamentals will provide a major opportunity in the technologies that will become increasingly critical in the years ahead. Global clean technologies market is worth some $6 trillion per annum and forecast to exceed $7 trillion by 2015. Recent monthly figures show that investments in upstream solar, water, and biofuels led clean tech subsectors in market gains of approximately 8%, 5%, and 4.5% respectively. A key part of what Midwest Clean Tech Forum provides is a window into the most relevant technology trends. Through the Brinks Innovation Competition, as well as speakers and panelists at Midwest Clean Tech here in Chicago, you are introduced to key players in areas of opportunity and growth. In 2010, we saw the Brinks Innovation Competition winners providing technologies benefiting clean tech in the areas of water recycling and reuse, energy efficiency, and natural gas combustion. Trends continue to stay up for technologies that improve efficiencies. Some predict that ongoing increases in the oil prices will lead to investments in natural gas and natural gas technologies. And you'll hear more about some of the benefits in that sector from our winner. Additional trends to watch include solar technologies, smart grid, power storage, and waste energy. We also see positive predictions as to the surprising rates and increases of cost reduction from the domestic auto industry, including in batteries and EV. The opportunities in these areas continue to flow, as you will hear from our funding panel and our 2010 competition winners. We do have all the strengths here in the U.S. and in the Midwest to win the clean tech battle. U.S. universities and labs are the most productive and innovative. Our venture capital community is larger than all the rest of the world combined. And we must continue to support and celebrate innovators and entrepreneurs, and to adapt practices and policies which encourage and reward them. What is obvious is the urgent need for increasing capital investment. The next panel is all about funding of these opportunities. Now, just quickly, can anyone tell me who said, if you can count your money, you don't have $1 million? Which I'm sure is very obvious to many entrepreneurs. Anybody? That was John Paul Getty. We could use that kind of money for a few of our innovative Midwest entrepreneurs. But why do I quote an oil baron when we all realize that we need to move from capture to creation in energy? Because in spite of the industry, John Paul Getty was an innovator, one of the first to utilize new technologies for drilling with the use of geology to discover new resources. So it all comes down to innovation. And besides, let us not forget that Mr. Getty was from the Midwest. As we know, the Midwest has been a birthplace of innovation. Midwest Clean Tech 2011 on September 14th this year is once again at the Federal Reserve Bank and highlights the theme this year of clean tech innovation and partnering in a global economy. Building on the success of the past 3 years in showcasing Midwest clean technologies, Midwest Clean Tech provides a platform to actively engage in current clean tech trends while fostering these partnering opportunities. Many people in this room have helped to make Midwest Clean Tech possible, thus enabling this platform for innovation and the very thing that is so needed in this sector. For this, we thank you. Again, the successful Brinks Innovation Competition is being held throughout the next few months, culminating in the announcement of the winners at Midwest Clean Tech, September 14th, 2011. Please encourage your entrepreneurs to enter this year. We have materials available today, as well as on the website. You will hear more later from the terrific competition winners from 2010, and their progress throughout the year will inspire you to participate and support the Brinks Innovation Competition. We look forward to seeing each of you again on September 14th. And now let me please introduce Alan Dines, who is the Assistant Director of the Office of Corporate Relations at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and co-chair of the Brinks Innovation Competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to try a different strategy here, see if I do any better. We'll see if that stays. I had the benefit of watching what didn't work. Thank you all. Thanks especially to Brinks for hosting this meeting and for hosting the innovation competition. Thanks to the Global Midwest Alliance for having these conferences. We're into the 4th year now. This will be the 3rd year of the innovation competition. Our objectives with all of this is really to better focus in on what the innovation opportunities are in the Midwest predominantly around the whole clean tech sector. So one of the ways we do that is through the conference, and other ways through the Brinks Innovation Competition. First, just a little bit about me. While I do that, I'd like to ask our panelists to come on up and grab a seat here at our table, and we're going to get on to them here in just a moment. So as Rebecca mentioned, I'm the president of the Midwest Research University Network. I am also assistant director at the Office of Corporate Relations at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In that capacity, I work principally with startups, basically new ventures and private equity. So my job is to essentially connect with faculty who have interesting inventions that have potential for commercialization, and to also work with students. And actually, the most rapidly growing piece of our whole startup culture in Madison is with students. And part of that is a numbers game. We got 40,000 of them. That helps a lot, only about 2,000 faculty. But also, we've got some incredibly bright students. Last year in the innovation competition, we had a couple of companies that were actually student-initiated. So this panel, the topic is trends in innovation, and in particular trends in clean tech funding. So we have assembled a panel of some of our judges from the innovation competition this year. And I'm going to do a quick introduction for each of them, and we have until 12:30 to talk about these trends in clean tech funding. And I'm going to ask each of our panelists to take 3 or 4 minutes to kind of provide his or her perspective on what's going on in the clean tech sector in the Midwest. And then we're going to have a few questions, and we want to leave some time for you in the audience to ask a question. And we also have some operation out in the world of the internet, where those of you who are viewing this as a webinar can pose a question and get it to us. So we'll try both of those. So our panelists, I'm going to introduce. First, to my immediate right is Tom Churchwell. And you have the bios, so I won't go into detail. Tom has been a mainstay, a fixture in Midwest venture capital for more than 20 years. He was one of the founders of Arch Development Fund, and prior to that had been involved with Arch Development Corporation. So this was one of the early efforts in bringing venture capital to innovative startup companies, in many cases coming out of universities. To Tom's right, we have Teresa Esser. Teresa is general partner at Capital Midwest Fund. And I understand from Teresa, she just closed on that fund, which is a great accomplishment, especially in this environment. Congratulations, Teresa. Teresa is also involved in Silicon Pastures, an angel investment group, and so she brings both angel investment and VC investment background to the judging and to the panel today. And then we have Alex Tang to the far right on the panel. Alex is actually kind of tag teaming with Jason Zielke, and Jason, Alex, and Amy from Clean Energy Trust have all volunteered to help in the judging, and they're going to work together on it. So we have Alex here today, even though Jason's name is on the list as one of the judges. Alex is a co-founder of Invention Bridge, actually, which is kind of the father of the Clean Energy Trust. He was director of finance and operations at the University of Chicago's Global Initiative Project before that, where he focused on China and India. I'm going to ask, maybe we'll start with Alex, to give us a few thoughts about where you see the clean tech funding picture headed these days, and maybe in the whatever context you like. You know, it's interesting. Somebody told me one time that getting a group of investors organized is somewhat like herding cats. So what I think we're finding here is we have put together a very fluid schedule for today. So I'm going to ask each of them to kind of speak off the cuff and give us a few minutes, and we'll pick it up with some questions following. Go ahead, Alex.
So there's been a lot of activity within the clean tech sector. From the Clean Energy Trust perspective, we tend to deal more with the commercialization of technologies from labs and universities, and we help connect them with capital and businesses to help them grow and accelerate their businesses. And so that means that we see a lot of funding from the federal government, as well as trying to connect with people such as like the angel investors here at this table, as well as other venture capital firms. Recently, specifically with programs such as ARPA-E, Advanced Research Projects Agency Energy out of the Department of Energy, as well as the National Science Foundation, have pumped a lot of money into federal grant programs. One of the things that they've just announced recently is the Sunshot Initiative, trying to get solar cells or solar efficiency down to $1 per watt. And so there's a lot of focused areas on programs like that to try to become more economically viable for technologies. A lot of research has to be done still, and so that's why they're putting a lot of effort behind it. With respect to more entrepreneurial ventures, we're seeing a lot of focus on combining both the hard sciences as well as with software and IT platforms, and I'm sure the rest of the panel can talk about that more.
Great. Let's move to Teresa. Go ahead.
Okay. This is my take on trends. I don't know how it fits with the bigger picture, but back in 1714, the British government had a problem. They were spending a great deal of their country's time, talent, and treasure sending ships out to sea, but once they got out of sight of land, they didn't really know where they were. Ship captains who did not know where they were could crash their ships into rocks, losing the entire crew. Or they could sail for weeks in the wrong direction, until they ran out of food and the crew died of scurvy. To address this problem, the British Parliament announced a contest. They offered a prize of 20,000 British pounds to anyone who could develop a simple and practical method for the precise determination of a ship's longitude. 20,000 pounds was a lot of money back in 1714. The solution to determining a ship's longitude was precise measurement. A man named Harrison came up with a clock that would work on a ship, a maritime clock, and they were able to accurately determine where they were. I believe we have a similar problem in the United States today. We know that our country uses a great deal of energy, but we don't know exactly how this energy is used. And more importantly, we don't know exactly how this energy is wasted. We don't know how much energy we really need to maintain our current lifestyle. We know there's energy all around us, but we don't know exactly how it's being captured. We know we want to reduce our dependence on foreign oil, but we don't know how much capacity we have inside our own country. In my opinion, the solution to this problem is also precise measurement. I'm a big believer in the smart grid, not on the macro scale. When you think of the grid, you think about all the electric power lines in the entire country. I'm more interested in small innovations, small devices that precisely measure the amount of power that's used inside a home, inside a car, and that connect things together. I'm interested in precise devices that can tell people, so whether it's software programs or devices that can tell people, you know, when you use your washing machine at a time when it's peak usage for our town, you cause us to burn more coal because you drive up the peak usage. Could you use your washing machine in the middle of the night? Could you run your dishwasher in the middle of the night? We need more measurement. We need to know exactly how our people are using these, the appliances, the electric power appliances that cost energy, and we need incentives and programs for figuring out how to reduce peak usage. If we reduce peak usage, then we won't have to run coal-burning power plants or other solar power plants. We won't have to run the grid all the way to peak all the time. Another interesting part of measurement is if you give people incentives to put solar panels or wind turbines on their houses or on their buildings, they can take as much energy as they need and sell back their excess precisely to the grid. So we would have many energy generating facilities throughout the grid, and people would have an incentive to use their roof as a solar facility, and to use their or to use the wind that's blowing and keeping them up at night as a way to generate electricity, a way to power their own dishwasher, or as a way to put energy into their car. How much energy do you need in your car? Could the battery that is in your car be a backup for your house? Could the solar power could the solar cells, so whatever's on your roof, could that feed the battery that's in your car? And could you be self-sustaining? Could you sell your extra energy? We need devices and software and education, but we need to think about this as a problem for our nation, and we need to think about this. Anyway, I'm glad that we're having a contest. Contests are the way to solve the problem. And my fund, it's a $40 million fund. We are investing in companies. We're putting $2 million to $8 million into companies that have solutions. We're putting money into companies that organize, optimize, and accelerate business processes, or that save time, save money, and save lives. Most importantly, though, we're putting money into companies that make us proud to be a Midwesterner. That is the most important thing about our fund, Capital Midwest Fund. So with that...
All right. Well, that brings us to Tom.
Thanks. So I think the reason that Alan invites me to these things is because I'm the voice of doom. I'm sorry, I've got allergies. Can you hear me now? Is that all right? Not great. So I guess I'm the voice of doom, or comic relief, or I prefer cautionary advice. But so let me give you a perspective of having invested in, not very successfully, in a number of clean tech things. And there's several categories of advice. The first one is to be aware of categories. When somebody comes to me and says, great news, we're in biotech, which it used to be, and then it was nanotech, and now it's clean tech, I don't care. I mean, apart from domain knowledge of whether I can understand what it is you do and think I can contribute something to it, a good business is worth investing in, and a bad business isn't, regardless of what category you're in. So be a good business, and if you happen to be in clean tech, God bless you, but be a good business. I worry a lot about investing in businesses that depend on subsidies or regulations, because subsidies and regulations have a way of going away, and good businesses don't. So anytime somebody says, great news, the reason I'm going to make a lot of money is because the government's heavily subsidizing, I'm not very interested. We're all witnessing real time what's going to happen to subsidies from all levels of government. And while regulations are just getting worse, I've never in my career seen a good business that grew out of regulations. Maybe they were helped by regulations, but they didn't grow because of regulations, and they didn't succeed because of regulations. I'd beware of regionalism. I guess I probably paid as many dues about being in the Midwest as anybody. But at the end of the day, it matters whether you're a good business, not where you are. So be a good business, and people invest in you if you're in the Midwest, or if you're in China, or if you're in Timbuktu. But be a good business. Finally, in terms of financing, I think it's important to recognize that all early stage money, all early stage investing is very, very parochial. So if you're a angel round, A round business, sort of pre-5 million in fundraising, certainly pre-$1 million in revenue, your opportunities for fundraising are very local. There are 4 or 5 other VCs that are in the Midwest that do clean tech investing. That's it. And there are a lot of angels. So once again, my advice is build a good business fast. Figure out how you can get started in your business with a minimum amount of capital, because that's what you're going to be able to raise. Once you get going, once you get to positive revenue in the kind of $1 million plus range. You've got a Series A round behind you. You can be a national target for investing, and people will come from miles away to invest in you. Before that, they won't. And if you've built a business that depends on raising very large amounts of capital at very early stages, you're in for disappointment.
All right, thank you, Tom. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and while I'm doing that, I'd like those of you in the audience and on the internet to think about asking something yourself and get it over to us. But let me start out. Being a person from a university, this is somewhat of a pet subject of mine. I often think of universities as magnets for innovation. They're certainly centers where lots of smart people come together. They do a lot of thinking, and there's a lot of research done at universities, particularly Midwest universities. We collectively do something in the order of $9 billion a year in academic R&D and in some cases translational R&D. And largely the inventions that come out of that R&D are let's say random acts of invention. They're not strategically directed at solving a problem, much the way corporate investment in research might be directed. And the result of that is we have a lot of very early stage ideas and early stage technologies that are patented and then up for license by the university licensing offices. So the question is, I notice all of our panels referred to companies, and companies that presumably have some operational history, some kind of a management team. And so the question I'd like to toss out here to the panelists, and this is a surprise because I just thought of this as I was listening earlier, but what do you do to help get university technology up to a point where it's actually fundable as a venture investment? And Alex, I think I'll start with you because your fund is a little different than others in that you actually also do some acceleration work and help to actually build the companies as a part of the investment deal. Is that correct?
Mostly correct. So I will add one caveat. So technically, we are an accelerator, but to correct it, we technically don't have a for-profit fund. And so one of the things that the Clean Energy Trust is getting ready to go to market with is you call it something called a proof of concept fund. So it would be money that'll be granted away to scientists and entrepreneurs to help them figure out the proof of concepts or prototypings that helps them get the data sets to allow them to become more venture ready. Now, there are that we feel that at our organization, as well as feedback throughout the community, that it's a void that needs to be addressed, and we'll be addressing that through working with corporations, foundations, as well as high net worth individuals. One of the things that's also important with this whole process is the mentoring process. Being able to give directed feedback to the entrepreneurs as well as the scientists to say, here are the milestones you need to think about, here are the different types of operational things that you need to consider. But ultimately, the idea is to be able to collaborate with like-minded people to kind of accelerate the growth of that business. And so the Clean Energy Trust, for example, is involved with the Small Business Administration Entrepreneurial Mentoring Corp pilot program. It's a program that's part of the Startup America initiative of the White House. And what we're doing right now is we're mentoring 20 companies, clean tech companies across the Midwest to help them figure out what their needs are and all their other issues that they're facing to help them kind of reach the next level. I think the next phase that they want to try to do through those programs is to incorporate through the SBIC program potential venture investing or clean tech investing, as well as the other things maybe through DOE loan guarantees or through cross-agency things. So, at the Clean Energy Trust, since we're very focused on the pre-seed, new development or early entrepreneurs, we feel that our contribution is best by having that type of mechanism where we can grant away the money to do that.
All right, thanks. And Tracy, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. When I think of a university, I think not only as of an organization that educates students, but also a large business with a very large budget and many buildings. And the first thing that came to mind when Alan put forth this suggestion was, what if a group of students came to the university? They came to a group of angel investors and they said, we are students from the University of Wisconsin, and we have a software program that we wrote that keeps track of when lights are left on and there's no one in the room, or when what the temperature is of a building. Do we need to keep buildings at 70 degrees in the middle of the night? Do we need to keep buildings at 70 degrees on Saturday, Sunday, on school holidays? Do we need to, how can we reduce energy expenditure? And if they were to come to our Angel Investment Network with that, we would say, that's wonderful. You're from the university. We know that the university supports innovation. Could you sign up? Could the university sign up to be your test customer? Could you test your device on the facilities that are right there in the university? Because then you'll have some real data, and we'll be curious to know if this is something that the university values enough to pay for. Could you sign up the university as your initial customer? That, to me, would be a way to test the appetite for promoting innovation at the university level. And it would be a way for us, Angels first want to provide advice and guidance, and the first thing that Angels want to do is work with the entrepreneurs to come up with a series of milestones that they'll be able to meet in their first year. So we love to work with universities. We love to work with universities to figure out what milestones the teams should meet, and we love to encourage students to come up with innovative ideas that they can then show to the Angels.
Tom, do you want to add anything
Well,
on that?
Of course. So I believe that virtually all great innovation comes out of the academic setting. Big corporations do D, not very much R. Little companies do a little of each, but not significant. If you count back the things that really have changed the shape of our lives, they've largely come out of universities. And the problem as it has always been, the gap between what the university can demonstrate that it can do, or the university researcher, and what a big corporation who's ultimately going to scale it needs to prove that it works at a scale that they can invest in. And that gap has always been filled, and I believe always will be filled in our economy, by small businesses, by entrepreneurial gazelle startups. And so I believe that the issue is not about randomness, that's what we pay for, but it's about creating structures. Accelerator funds are great. Mentoring is great. Anything that you can do to help the entrepreneur. But fundamentally, if you look at the way the companies that have made serious money and made serious change happen, it is because they were able to employ smart money. It's not a capital problem, it's a smart problem. And smart money applies a little money and a lot of plain business discipline to move technologies into products, into the marketplace, and into scale.
So let's turn to our audience here and see if we have some questions that maybe you can shoot at us, and we'll see what we can do with them. Or if there's anything coming from the internet, we'll take some of those questions as well. All right, we're going to go on with another one of our own. There's a metaphor that I've heard of investing is somewhat like betting on horses. You can bet on the horse, the race, or the jockey. And from a venture investment sort of opportunity, in a way, the horse would be the specific company opportunity, the jockey would be the management team, and the race would be the business sector, maybe broadly clean tech, but I suspect it needs to be a little bit more specific. But I think what I heard Tom say was he kind of likes to bet on the horses, but with good jockeys, and doesn't care which race so much. But I don't think it's quite that simple. And Tom, do you want to amplify on that? I think you've touched on several of these already.
Well, when my friend Steve Kaplan at the university first published his thesis that it's the horse, or it's the jockey, not the horse, I said that's wrong. And then as I thought about it, it's exactly right. It's always the jockey, but it's never the jockey. It's the horse, or you have nothing. If you haven't got a great product idea, then you haven't got anything. And what we do as in venture capital, and the history of this is replete, is change jockeys frequently, so that we know for a certainty that the entrepreneur that we invest in is not going to be the entrepreneur that takes it to exit. Statistically never happens. There's going to be at least one and probably two other jockeys on that horse before it gets to the end of the race, to the exit. And so, got to have the horse, you got to have the right jockey for the right race, and you got to figure out how long that race is and whether you can finance it.
So there's been a lot of changes in the venture capital industry over the last few years. Since 2008 or so, there's a lot more. Well, there's a lot fewer funds. Some of the big funds seem to be raising even bigger funds. Some of the smaller funds are not as successful. Teresa, you were just through that whole treadmill of raising money. What's your sense for the availability of early stage venture capital? Is there you were very fortunate to have completed the fund. Do you see others going to have that kind of success, and will there be more money available for early stage innovative ideas?
I've heard that things are getting easier now. I've heard that with the Skype activity, people are getting excited again. Mergers and acquisitions will heat up. I don't know, I can't project that much. But people say, things are getting easier. We've closed our fund, so that's not really helpful to us. I would say that things have changed significantly. You can't. At the angel level, entrepreneurs are always coming forth with a business plan, and sometimes they say, well, if you invest, $500,000 today, I'll just go out and get a round of $3 million. Well, we raised our fund because we didn't think that entrepreneurs were going to be able to get to the $3 million. We made 17 investments through Silicon Pastures, and if they needed $3 million or they were going to go out of business, the answer was they were going to go out of business. So we learned to find entrepreneurs who could make it work on what they were able to close on, and you delay the investment until they crafted a business plan where they were going to be able to make it on the dollars that were going to be put into the business. They were going to get to break even on those dollars, period, because there were no other doors on which to knock. Now there are venture capital funds that have money to put into companies. It continues to be a difficult slog. And from my perspective as a venture capitalist, there are many great deals for me to invest in. We used to compete with banks. We used to lose. Equity loses against debt. Now there's no debt, so equity wins. From my perspective, there are many great companies for me to think about investing in. From the perspective of an entrepreneur, it's important to think about bootstrapping, having a, if the alternative is, you also have to look at best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If you can't get to a negotiated agreement, what's your best alternative? Can this business work on bootstrapping? There are times when I see business plans from entrepreneurs who say, well, all you have to do is put in the $500,000, then we're going to go out for a $5 million round, we're going to follow it with $20 million, and we're going to get another $60 from the government. It's hard for me to imagine that could possibly succeed in the Midwest. I think you can get to $3 million, you can get to $5 million. Hopefully you can make it work on whatever money you're able to raise.
So the magic word I heard earlier was customers, and I started a couple of companies. My own was involved in a third one, all of which sold. But the magic word was always customers. Where do you get the next dollar of actual customer revenue? Have you seen in your dealings looking at investment opportunities, have you seen companies that have ready-to-go products that customers can buy here and now? And is that a good sign for clean tech to have something that's ready to actually sell?
Yeah, and I made a list of my favorite topics in clean tech. In addition to measurement and the smart grid, there's technology and software that power machines that do dirty jobs that human beings don't want to do because they're very, very dangerous. And devices that reduce waste. If you can go to your customer and you can say, I have a device or I have a software program that will help you save money. Look at how you can use my device. Look at how you can use my software to save money today. And the customer looks at you and says, we're in a recession. I want to save money. I could buy your technology. It'll pay for itself in 6 months. And from then on, I'm saving money, from then on. This is what I see clean tech is. Or you go, so I'm familiar with the people who started the iRobot software company. They make robotic vacuum cleaners, but more importantly, they make PackBots. PackBots were sent into the Japanese nuclear reactor when it was too dangerous for humans to go in. We should send robots into mines. We should send robots into nuclear reactors. So can you go to a customer and say, look, this is a dirty job. People are dying in these mines. This is a dangerous job. Let's send in the robots. How can we automate? Those are places where customers can make the buying decision. It sort of doesn't matter if you're a risky startup. It sort of doesn't matter if you're new, because the pain is so great. They want to try whatever it is that you tell them is going to solve the problem.
Thanks. I think I saw a question out there. Yes.
Just wanted to know, what your investment criteria are for an early stage clean tech company. I mean, I would imagine that you go through some technical and commercial due diligence before you invest. Can you share with us what that due diligence entails?
So let me just repeat the question for the benefit of everyone else. The question was, what are the investment criteria that you all use in selecting those companies that you want to consider for investment, and how do you do the diligence? And who wants to start?
All right, so what we do is we work with the entrepreneurs to help them get ready. So we look at what problem are you trying to solve? How do you plan to go about it? What's your commercial strategy? Do you plan to manufacture it? Do you plan to outsource it? What's the kind of path forward, and do you have the experience to do that? And then on top of that, we also look at who you have on your team, knowing that at the earliest stages you do not have everybody you need, but we want to identify the potential people you need to hire down the line. And then we also look at the overall focus area of the sector. So for example, 3 years ago, advanced thin film solar was, the prettiest girl in the room. Everybody was pouring money into it. And then now, if you're saying you're going to look into some advanced thin film semiconductor, you have to actually answer a lot of technical and very tough questions, because a lot of investors have lost money in that space. So it's kind of what's hot now versus what's not. And so by putting all that together, what we do is we try to give you the best plan forward to get you prepared to become venture ready in that sense. Now, there still has to be a lot of heavy lifting done, where you actually have to go out and prove out your technical merits. You have to go get that data set. You have to go get that pilot test. You have to go get that. And those are things that we can make the introductions for you in that sense, but ultimately the entrepreneur has to be able to close the deal to get those types of arrangements. And little by little, that's how they get built up, so that they become more attractive to the venture community. I think recently at the Clean Energy Challenge, we had 20 judges there, about a third from Sand Hill Road, and we had a little private meeting talking about what did you guys want to see in terms of companies here that you guys could potentially invest in, and they all unanimously said, show us data sets and show us that the thing works, and then we can start talking. Otherwise, we're just not interested in seeing it. So that's why, from our perspective, helping you get the strategy and roadmap together, but ultimately with our proof of concept fund, we may be able to get that money if you applied for it, to get that data set, to get you to the dance, to get you to be able to have that conversation. So it's a long road.
Other comments on investment criteria, real quick?
Okay, Capital Midwest Fund, we have inside of our office Silicon Pastures Angel Investment Network. So if a company is young, very early, we would sometimes say, why don't you go and pitch the angels? Why don't you talk to the Silicon Pastures Selection Committee and see if the angels want to invest, $100, $200, $500,000 in your technology, and maybe can we get some other angel groups to syndicate to fill out $1 million round? So they'll come in, they'll send the business plan or executive summary. I'll share it with the selection committee for Silicon Pastures. We'll invite 4 companies to come in and pitch. We'll choose 2 to invite to our monthly dinner. At the dinner, they pitch to a group of angels. Now, some of these are people who have run businesses before. Some of them have deep expertise in the wind industry, in the solar industry, in the energy, various steam tunnels underneath cities, that sort of thing. Some of them made their money through different ways, or they're lawyers. And they'll sit around and they'll ask questions of this entrepreneur, and they'll interact with the entrepreneur. We watch them through a variety of ways. If you get invited to the dinner, it's open bar from 5 to 6. We watch and see how much you drink. We watch and see how you interact with the people in the room. Then we see how you follow up. Did you go around and get the business cards from everybody so that you can follow up with people as individuals? Then we look to our membership and we say, do people here, is there a champion? Is anybody so moved by this business that they want to step forward and be a champion for this business? Or is there a champion in another angel group? Is there another angel group that's championing this deal on our behalf? So we're happy to follow other angel groups if they can put forth a champion. And this champion is somebody who knows the entrepreneur well. They've spent some time with them. They've worked with. They've set the milestones. They've said, you said you're going to meet these milestones in 2011. Are you meeting these milestones? How much capital do you really need? The fund watches all this. We watch to see if they got the angel financing. We watch to see if they meet their milestones, and then we want to come in later and invest $2 million to $8 million in these companies after they have, done what they said they were going to do.
Tom, did you have a?
Yep, very shortly. This sort of covers a bunch of the questions that you've asked. I think the single most dangerous concept in clean tech, green, is that somehow because you're clean tech or a green business, that you're better than other businesses. And that makes you more investable, more useful in society, just a better deal. And it doesn't. Reality is that for time immemorial, the American consumer, including corporate consumers, have never paid extra for green. That may be changing, I emphasize may, but is only changing a little bit. And so unless your product or your service is competitive with other not green, not so good services or products, you're probably not going to succeed. So if you can demonstrate that you are price competitive, price and quality competitive, and green, you got a good business.
So we are out of time. I did see one other question out there. Was there something we didn't cover? Okay. I guess my personal perspective on this, having worked with connecting a lot of entrepreneurs with a lot of investors, I think that one of the key things that you need to really show to the whatever investor you're approaching, whether they're VCs, angels, they really want to know how they're going to get their money back. First, if they're going to get any money back, and then secondly, how much more they're going to get back. And you need to really organize your pitch in that context. With that, I thank you very much for all of your patience, for your attention, and please give our panelists a hand for their expertise. We're going to, while the panelists depart the table here, I'm going to introduce LG Almeida. And actually, we'll set this up here properly. So LG is my partner here with the Brinks Innovation Competition. He's actually the co-director of the Brinks Innovation Competition, and he is, as the name implies, from Brinks-Hoffer Gilson Leone. He's here from the Ann Arbor office of Brinks. He's actually a true Midwestern guy, I see, actually coming from Detroit and Ann Arbor myself. I recognize names like University of Detroit, where he had his JD. He's a Purdue grad, which is another member of the Midwest Research University Network. He's a shareholder and chairs the Nanotech Practice Group at Brinks-Hoffer. He focuses his practice on patent opinions and prosecution in the medical, chemical, nanotech, and mechanical arts. And he also has an emphasis on medical devices, nanomaterials, micro and nano devices. So he brings a very strong background to the topic he's going to be moderating here. And with that, I'm going to introduce LG. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Would the panelists please have your seats, please? Again, thank you for that intro and for your attendance here today. This panel is titled, Where Are They Now? An Update on the 2010 Innovation Competition winners last year. Briefly, we have Jim Trethway, the president and CEO of BioIonics, the first place winners last year. Merrill Roque, chairman and CEO of Ecothermics Corporation, second place winners. And Steve Ogonek, CEO of Lumic Control Products. I'd like to introduce Jim, firstly. Jim is the president and CEO of BioIonics, a manufacturer of clean technology industrial disinfection systems, which uses a breakthrough patented catalytic process that generates powerful disinfectants from the water stream itself. Initial applications include food safety and water reuse. Customers include Sara Lee, Costco, and Gerber Poultry, to name a few. Future applications may include those in oil and gas production and other industries. The company is based in the Madison, Wisconsin area and is privately held. Mr. Trethway received his Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering and his Master's of Science in Business Administration, also from both degrees coming from the University of Illinois. So without further ado, let's please welcome Jim Trethway.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone and the organizers for inviting me to attend the meeting today, and also for selecting BioIonics, Inc. as the first place winner of the Midwest Clean Tech 2010 Brinks Innovation Competition. It's quite an honor, and we've tried to do our best in the last year to stand up to that. I'd also like to thank Brinks Hoffer, Gilson, and Leone for sponsoring this competition. In our area, the emphasis is still on biotech in Madison, Wisconsin, and clean tech is just it's kind of a new area. No one's quite sure what it is, and having this recognition is very helpful with our angel investors who have supported us up until now. I'd also like to thank the Global Midwest Alliance for your promotion of the Midwest as a major regional high-tech business center, which it is and always has been, and it's made this move from old-style industry to high-tech, I think, pretty well. And also to the Midwest Research University Network for their efforts at making visible the research capabilities and commercially valuable intellectual properties that have been developed at Midwest Research Universities. I spent a number of years licensing with technologies as a licensing manager at the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. So what does BioIonics do? First of all, we solve serious food safety and water reuse problems, and it's reducing risks of recalls and consumer illness, and we're conserving water across multiple markets. And each one of our installations may handle hundreds of thousands or millions of gallons of water a day. And if we can allow that to be reused for a longer period by disinfecting it, we've really cut down on a community's water usage and their wastewater plant load. We use a breakthrough disinfection process. It's clean and environmentally friendly. It works where other disinfection methods fail or have a hard time working. And we offer automated operations to the plant managers. There's no chemicals or supplies to buy or required. Our focus right now is on food safety. There's been a major change in food processing plants, a recognition that what formerly was one intervention to keep processed water clean now is a multiple intervention process. In poultry processing, you just don't throw some chlorine in the chiller water that takes the poultry from body temperature to storage temperatures. That's the thing the USDA regulates, but USDA doesn't regulate if you cut that chicken into parts and package it and maybe marinate it. It never looks at that chicken again, and these plants are realizing we can't just meet what the USDA says we have to, but we have to do what's good for our customer. Because in the plants I get into, they say, if there's a recall in my industry, whether it's lettuce or poultry or meat, even if it's not our plant, it hurts our business over the short term. We also see interesting opportunities in other markets. There are markets that we have to be careful to not turn into a research group, and we were focusing on initially on certain commercial applications where we can make significant inroads in the market. But in the oil and the gas industry, there's opportunities for disinfecting what they call fracturing water. You've probably seen it in Time magazine and other articles about that. Injection water of seawater into the North Sea oil fields to increase yields and prevent loss of crude quality due to the effects of some of the bacteria that's in the seawater they inject, and produced waters that come out with the oil and the gas. Water and wastewater. There's a real problem in our wastewater and water streams, particularly in the Chesapeake Bay area on ammonia issues. And there's been a number of articles on pharmaceutical removal. Pharmaceuticals are not regulated. Ammonia is. We've done some work in our lab showing at least 90% knockdown on ammonia. And other things like ship bilge water treatment, the water that's stored in the bottom of the ship that gets discharged. It comes in one port, maybe in the Black Sea, and then gets discharged into the Great Lakes. There's new international regulations that are affecting that, and there's other people doing missionary work in that market, and we hope to ride in on their coattails with a better process here. At the same time, we're an early stage company. We know our investors want their money out and they want a multiple on it. So we've invested in patents. We have 4 issued patents, 4 pending U.S. patent applications, 4 pending U.S. patents, and 3 international first stage patent applications called the Patent Cooperation Treaty stage. The idea is that it adds to shareholder value considerably at exit. So what do we have here in our system? The photo shows how simple and compact it is. Virtually every industrial plant we go into, if they've been successful, they've grown so they don't have an extra square foot within the plant. Ours fits in a very tight space. We've designed it to meet food processing industry standards, the highest standard for sanitation being 3A. We use FDA approved materials. We are USDA approved for meat and poultry applications. There's no moving parts. It's a low maintenance design. And how we disinfect is taking apart the water and any salt molecules in the liquids and making very powerful disinfectants from them. They use catalytic ceramic plates fired at high temperatures for long life, and these plates are safe. They've been approved by the NSF for drinking water applications. One of the most important things we found out when we went in and started selling things is the automation that we have. It takes 24 to 36 hours for a company to get lab tests back showing that they don't have bacterial contamination in their product. That product can't move, it can't leave their inventory until that period is over. And if they have a problem, they can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in that 24 hours. We actually give them an online estimate of disinfection efficacy. There's no chemicals to add to tanks or forget to add to tanks. There's no dosing pumps that can go wrong. And this has proven to be a big benefit of our system. So what have we done in the last year? We've made installations in 4 major market segments of the food processing industry: meat processing, poultry processing, packaged salads, and egg processing, value-added egg processing. All these are designed to increase food safety, and our customers in some cases have been able to make very significant reductions in water use. One customer, Costco, which has a new meat processing plant out in Tracy, California, where we're in, they can hold their chilling brine that's used to take hot dogs from oven temperature to storage temperature. Other companies will discharge that daily. They can keep it for 3 weeks. So they save the salt, they save the water in a water poor area of the country. It's been a major benefit. We've successfully demonstrated new applications of our process, and we're very careful about this, not to get too far ahead of ourselves. We are focused on commercialization, but we have a customer in northwestern Wisconsin interested in ammonia removal, and we've been very successful in that treatment. We've raised over $2.3 million in capital, and it's helping us fund our working capital needs as we grow to profitability. I have to say, being a first place winner in the Brinks Innovation Competition was helpful because it showed our investors that, in fact, there's more interest than just me presenting to them in this clean tech area, and that other people are watching. And now we're preparing to begin a final $5 million round to be a mezzanine round. We're already selling. We registered our first sales last year. We'll probably sell over $1 million this year. And I've already gone on the line that we'll have an exit opportunity for our investors in 2014, and we'll be profitable in 2013. I'll just give you an example here of one of our applications, and it's vegetable and fruit disinfection. As you know, you can buy prepackaged salads in the store today. They're very popular. All the major chains from Taco Bell to McDonald's, they buy their shredded lettuce, their diced onions, their shredded cabbage, all comes in a bag. And we're with one of the largest suppliers to McDonald's and Taco Bell in the Southeast, McIntyre Produce. We treat the flume water. We have about 1 minute to make sure there's no bacterial residual in a product that the cells of the lettuce want to take up any bacteria and hold on to it. And we're doing very well with that. They've put us on they have 5 lines. They put us, of course, on the hardest one first. But, we're doing okay, and we're looking forward to more orders from them. Costco, I mentioned, we're treating the brine, the highly concentrated salt water that takes meat from cooking temperature to storage temperature. And I have 2 minutes left. Here's a picture of eggs. We're doing that. Some of our future opportunities, I mentioned oil and gas field installations. What are our unfair competitive advantages? We have a unique process. We own our own patents. We have a lot of trade secrets and know-how. What we're doing is very, very difficult. We deal with some of the nastiest water streams with high organic loads that other processes don't work with. And I'm very lucky I have a team of people that handles this sort of problems and enjoys it. I'd just like to mention one thing about our Midwest advantages, Teresa. We're very lucky in the Midwest. We have strong food processing and water treatment expertise. It makes it much easier for me to hire experienced engineers and sales employees that know these markets. We're also able to subcontract much of our fabrication. We don't have to bend stainless steel. We don't have to weld stainless steel. My facilities costs are very reasonable, and I can get good experienced field installation and service employees. It's very easy with my compact product to export it around the world. Chicago's a great air freight port to go out of. And fortunately, we've had investor interest in this useful clean tech technologies that may be a little less glamorous than the cloud or IT or sometimes biotech has been. So with that, I'm out of time and I've run over a bit, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. We will hold questions until the other two speakers have finished for timing purposes. Our next speaker, next panelist is Merle Roque. He is chairman and CEO of Ecothermics Corporation. Ecothermics Corporation is an engineering design and service company located in the Peoria Next Innovation Center in Peoria, Illinois. Ecothermics is currently focused on developing next-generation heating and cooling systems using a natural refrigerant for a variety of applications anywhere around the world. Prior to forming Ecothermics Corporation, Merle was the Chief Operating Officer of CGN and Associates, a global management consulting firm. Merle?
Thanks, LG. In the interest of time, I'd like to begin with a 9-minute television segment aired by Fox Business TV last December, and that'll give us an introduction, and then we'll cover a summary of what has happened since then in the last 5 months or so. Please roll the TV video.
Today on Special Edition TV, a revolutionary new HVAC system that helps the environment and your bottom line.
Welcome to Special Edition TV. I'm Ileana Bravo. Energy and the environment have certainly been in the news lately, especially with issues like pollution and global warming. Solving our energy challenges while maintaining environmental responsibility is a hotly debated issue.
Ah, the refreshing sound of a pop bottle opening. And on a hot day, the fizz of the bubbles sure makes it taste even better. Now, the same stuff that gives soda its fizz may also help to keep it cold as well. In fact, it may help to cool and heat our homes, buildings, and even make us hot water, all in an environmentally friendly way. And what's this magic element? It's atmospheric carbon dioxide, also known as CO2. Yes, the same CO2 that has dominated environmental news lately. Surprised?
Conventional refrigerants have been around for some time. Actually, CO2 saw some widespread use actually 100 years ago as a very early natural refrigerant, but lost popularity when some of the new synthetic refrigerants came out.
Travis Horton is an associate professor of civil engineering here at Purdue University. He's been working on improving the energy efficiency of buildings.
CO2 is increasing in popularity again, primarily because it is a very environmentally friendly refrigerant. It's non-toxic, it's non-flammable, and it does have a very low global warming potential. In fact, it is the refrigerant, the baseline refrigerant against which all other refrigerants are compared for their global warming potential. So it's a great opportunity to have a positive impact on the environment.
In fact, according to a report from the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden and posted on the EPA's website, CO2 is relatively inexpensive and unique among natural refrigerants in its good safety characteristics. Additionally, the report says all these factors combined make it an ideal fluid from safety and environmental points of view. While the technology and science has been around for quite some time, making it viable and efficient in today's high-tech HVAC systems has posed a challenge. Hence, a joint project between Purdue University's Herrick Labs, one of the world's most advanced labs for testing HVAC compressors, and Ecothermics Corporation, a private sector HVAC technology company.
We've been involved in working with Purdue University for about 8 years now.
Merle Roque is the CEO of Ecothermics Corporation. They've been developing CO2 technology in an effort to not only make HVAC systems more energy efficient and to save money for end users, but also because government regulators are poised to require the HVAC industry to reduce their carbon footprint.
Most of the leadership in the HVAC industry anticipates an ongoing series of legislation to keep reducing the global warming potential of refrigerants. And we believe that as more and more people realize that a natural refrigerant, CO2, is as good or better than any HFC refrigerant, that will hasten that change to CO2 as the refrigerant. Meanwhile, though, we aren't waiting for climate change legislation to drive that change. We're relying on our energy efficiency in the initial applications to drive the change. This small compressor simultaneously is expanding and contracting CO2. So when it compresses it, it gets very hot, so you can heat air or water with that. And at the same time, in other parts of the cycle, it's expanding or cooling the CO2, so you can have cooler water or cooler air simultaneously. The applications globally are almost endless. Certainly we think of residential applications, but commercial buildings such as restaurants and hotels and office buildings, industrial processes, mobile equipment, actually on-board mobile equipment, as well as portable solutions for heating and cooling, such as for the Army or for FEMA, as in a post-Katrina situation. It's possible to use this technology on the power grid or off the power grid, even driven hydraulically, anywhere in the world.
However, the first place that Ecothermic's technology is being put to the test is here. This is Stolpak, and their business is dependent on this little guy, the honeybee. This is a honey processing plant in rural Ohio. The honey usually arrives in drums as a semi-solid.
The American consumer wants a honey product that is liquid, it's clear, and we're going to take it through a heat exchanger, elevate the temperature so we can take it through a filter press to remove any foreign material, and we'll pull it back through a heat exchanger to cool it back down to not damage the product, and we're going into holding tanks for packaging. So the demand for heat may vary somewhat during the time of the year where the product is coming from, but there is always significant demand. We've paid for a lot of propane and fuel oil through my lifetime. It's wonderful to not being able to have to use that or use less of it, to just not have to worry about those types of issues.
Well, for the end user, especially with energy costs on the rise, the ability to reduce your energy consumption by a factor of 3 to 4 translates very nicely into a reduction in your overall expenditures for energy.
Another factor that makes CO2 an environmentally friendly refrigerant as opposed to today's current synthetic refrigerants is safety.
Typically, if we're dealing with regulated refrigerants, we have to have trained or EPA certified personnel to maintain the systems. Since CO2 would not be a regulated refrigerant, one of the benefits is that you would not have to have on staff a trained EPA certified personnel to take care of that. In the event of a leak as well, CO2 is very nice from the standpoint that it is not toxic and it's not flammable, which many of the other, in fact most of the other natural refrigerants suffer from either one or both of those aspects.
The heart of the Ecothermic system is in their compressor design. This allows all of the existing ductwork in an installation to stay put and only necessitates that the compressor and surrounding support equipment be changed in the case of a retrofit. Now, one of the issues that has plagued the HVAC industry is equipment failure, especially the compressor.
The compressor we've developed is considerably different from the traditional rotary or recip or scroll compressor designs that are used in the HVAC industry today. Different primarily because of the high pressures required by CO2. To get the energy efficiency from CO2, it has to be elevated to the transcritical state, which means about 4 times the pressures of a conventional refrigerant. So we figured out how to do that and have a robust compressor that's still durable and doesn't have lubrication issues at those high pressures. We estimate that a typical system will last at least 20 years.
This is real stimulus. This is what I continue to talk about on the national platform is, it's not going to be government spending and government programs that is going to lead to long-term economic growth. It's going to be private sector entrepreneurs who take risk, who make investment, who come up with a better technology, better innovation. That is what has always allowed our country to compete internationally. And I think ecothermics and what we're talking about here today is an excellent example of that.
Certainly our goals are continuous improvement. We'll never be finished. We continually improve the performance of the compressor in terms of overall isentropic efficiency, for example, and the durability, and keep reducing the cost. And so we'll have the Mark IV and beyond as we look at two-stage compression and energy recovery in a variety of ways to keep improving the performance and reduce the cost.
For Special Edition TV, I'm Richard Allen reporting.
Until next time for Special Edition TV, I'm Ileana Bravo.
Find Ecothermics at 309-495-7320 or on the web at ecothermics.com. Find Special Edition TV at specialeditiontv.com.
Would you like to add anything? Would you like to add anything more, Merle?
I would. I've got a few more remarks to summarize the progress we've made, and I've narrowed it down to just 2 more hours. Actually, I'll summarize with this sign. Some of you might think it's a victory sign or peace. It's 2x. Since I was here for the competition a year ago, we've doubled our product line in terms of CO2 compressors in the family. We've doubled the number of research labs that are testing our products from 3 to 6. We've doubled the number of our employees. We've doubled the number of our technology development partners, doubled the number of our angel investors, and doubled the amount of money we've raised, now surpassing $5 million. It's been a good year. I'll pause here. I'm sure you have a variety of questions. I can't wait to answer them, and we'll do it later when time permits. Thanks.
Thank you, Merle. Our next panelist is Steve Ogonek. He is CEO of Peoria-based Lumic Control Products, which is a manufacturer of the innovative dynamic orifice valve, DOV. Now, initially targeting natural gas combustion applications, the use of the DOV results in greater combustion efficiencies, fuel savings, lower emissions, quicker setup, and more accurate control. Steve has been involved in the thermal process industry for almost 20 years. Steve holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science from Marquette University. Without further ado, Steve.
I am Steve Ogonek, CEO of Lumic Control Products. I want to thank Brinks again for hosting this and for hosting the competition last year. And I'd like to go through a little bit about what started our company and then tell you where we are today. What started the company, or where we're pushing, is to answer what amounts to a $6 billion wasted fuel problem in industrial and commercial combustion. And that problem exists because poor control means that we're either putting too much fuel with air or we're putting too much air with the fuel. If I have too much fuel, that's an obvious waste. If I have too much air, I'm wasting fuel because I have to heat that extra air in addition to the air I truly need for combustion. So what we like to shoot for is in natural gas about 10 to 1. And as you can see from our chart, the yellow area of the chart, most of the competition sets up in excess of 10% excess air, and that's due to the instability of their control with today's technology. Our valve solves that problem. Why does it solve that problem, or how does it help? It is the first valve to be introduced to the market that is inherently linear in its mechanical design. It's based on an iris valve. So if you think about a camera lens, you see a picture of it here in the upper right corner of the screen. That iris diaphragm is naturally linear in its control. That's the best control possible, both from its linearity, but also when you try to set up and tune a natural gas combustion process. We do have a patent pending mechanical control element, specifically the seals around that control element. The patent examiner actually picked it up about 2 weeks ago. So we're happy to report that we're now in that phase of the patent process where it looks like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It is easily, very easily retrofittable into existing applications. So we can take out the existing piece of equipment and put ours in place very quickly. It does incorporate onboard computer control. Many of our competitors do the same thing. One nice difference with our product is that we can use that computer control to provide additional features. What most of our competitors are doing is trying to overcome the non-linearity of their valve. So they're using a lot of processing horsepower to overcome that non-linearity. We can use that processing power to do other things. So when I say non-linearity, a very good example of that, if you look to the right of the screen, our valve on the top provides what is called laminar flow. That is very straight, very well-defined flow. Our most prevalent competitive product is a butterfly valve, which produces very, very turbulent flow. Turbulent flow is much harder to control than laminar flow. We've also made sure that our valve is a one-piece solution. You can see in the center, the competitive valve has not only an actuator that is separate from the valve, but you've got to tie the two of them together. And that process of tying the two of them together makes the installation of that product a much more time-consuming project than putting in a one-piece valve. So what have we done since the Brinks Innovation Competition? And oh, I'm sorry, this is kind of where are we today and a little bit of what we've done in the last 6 months. So we had initially, even before I joined the company, a little less than $400,000 raised in friends and family money. We've added a little over $50,000 to that total. And on the 27th of May, we'll be closing on more than $500,000 in angel investment. Very excited to get that in the door. It moves my status from volunteer CEO to something else. So we do have the DOV out and in operation in a couple of let's say, well-regarded customers, customers where we can get the data set that was mentioned earlier. We do have enhanced variants of the valve that are in testing, in production, and I'll show a little bit later. We've now completed our first casting tool to take the product from a machined tool or a machined piece to a cast and machined piece, thus driving the cost down, driving the weight down, making it much more manufacturable. One of the biggest things, moving down to the bottom, is that kind of slingshotting on the Brinks third place finish we had. We were able to take first place in the Innovate Illinois competition. So a very nice win for the company, for the founders, and we were very glad to get that check as well. So the size 2 casting I mentioned, we're also in the last design stages for the next size down of the valve. So we've made quite a bit of progress in the marketability and ready to go to market part of the product. I mentioned the casting, a couple pictures of the casting. We also have a complete surface mount board driving the electronics with the computer processor on board. That's in its final testing now, and the two are ready to integrate and for us to take it to market. A little bit back to the business side. We're looking in our first round of funding to raise $1 million. I mentioned we're closing on a little over half of that. We had another roughly $100,000 that came in prior to the close coming up in a couple weeks. But the key thing here is we expect to be profitable within 24 months based on that $1 million raise. So what did the Brinks competition do for us? Certainly exposure. It put us and our company in front of quite a few people. A little bit of cash, which is always beneficial to small startup companies. It helped us build momentum, helped us focus on getting our company prepared to really go after money. It also, as was mentioned earlier, gave us credibility in the eyes of investors. So an independent group was looking at our company saying, hey, we think there's something worthwhile here. A little bit of validation for the guys that had been working since the founding of the company in 2007 to say, yes, there's something here. And certainly encouragement, which, again, we want to thank the organizers for because we had that in droves. So lessons learned from the last 6 months, and this was hammered home, I think, in this exact meeting a year ago, was simplify the message. We certainly had to take our turn doing that. But some other things we picked up, and that is really spending some time defining our ideal investor. So you've heard some of the investment crowd talk about a little bit what they look for. It's equally important as a small company that you know what you want from an investor. And hopefully you can find somebody that matches that. Because if you don't, your life gets very hard very quickly. So to make that point, there are certainly more people out there asking for money than there are people handing out money. That's been mentioned again earlier today. Value proposition is a key thing for most investors, but we found that we also use that as one way to determine whether we have common ground with an investment group. In other words, we spent a lot of time crafting our value proposition, and at the end of that, if we present it to a group and they don't understand it, it's usually a pretty good bet that we're not going to have common ground down the road. Leveraging outside help, very important. The Brinks Group, we were able to leverage things there, but certainly within our network down in central Illinois, we've been able to leverage a lot of things like trading rent for equity just at the right time, certainly getting some beneficial terms in our castings. So we got 90-day terms on that. All of that stuff adds up and helps us stretch the few dollars that we do have. Again, something that was mentioned earlier is bootstrapping. We've been all about bootstrapping as we've started the company. I mentioned the volunteer CEO. That's all part of how we bootstrap to get where we are. So thank you very much, and I look forward to turning it back over to you and answering questions. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for all three of the panelists. At this point, I'd like to reintroduce Alan Dines to champion the urging of more applications for the competition and what the competition is all about. You can stand here too.
All right, thank you, LG. Do you want any? Are there any questions for
yes,
our
right.
panelists
That's
here
correct.
before we jump into that?
Yeah. Are there any questions regarding any of the three panelists and their businesses and challenges?
Yes.
Is your first valve design a $500 valve or a $5,000 valve?
No.
So the question was, is the first valve design a $500 valve or a $5,000? And I think the answer is no.
We're selling that valve right now at about $1,000. So it depends on the exact bore size, but it's about $1,000.
Over there.
For Jim, has the disinfection been used in the natural gas and oil industry yet, or is it still in its early stage testing?
Could you?
Disinfection technology.
The disinfection technology is in early stage.
I think he's asking a question of me.
Yeah.
In the oil and gas industry, they have used disinfection in the past. They've used chlorine. It reacts with the fracking fluids in a negative manner. They have problems in the North Sea oil fields with any supplies because you got to bring them out to the platforms. What's happening in the North Sea oil fields is as the Norwegian fields are playing out, they're taking seawater, injecting it into the field, and to move the oil and gas up. And the problem is there's sulfur-reducing bacteria in that water that turn a medium-grade crude into a much lower and much less valuable grade. So although they get a larger yield out of the field, the quality goes down and the price per gallon that they pay is less. The real advantage of our process is that we don't need any supplies. The reason we haven't gone over there is I wanted to keep our first installations in the U.S., and I certainly didn't want to put them on a Norwegian oil rig as we made sure that everything was robust. But it's a very interesting market. I had a Norwegian oil field engineer calculate the volumes that they have from their wells, the injection volumes. And our single unit, which is modular in design, according to him, meets the needs of most of their platforms.
Merrill, how much is one of your units compressor, and can it be put into a mobilized scenario?
Yes. The cost. The question is, how much is one of your units, and can it be installed in a mobilized scenario?
The compressors initially will be about $2,500, and that compares with a comparable CO2 compressor from Europe at $4,500, for example, of similar capacity. Yes, absolutely, can be used in a variety of applications. Certainly, mobile, portable, you bet.
Do we have any questions online? We have one right here.
For the valve, is there a pressure constraint? And with that computerized chip, is there a heat restraint? Can you put this like on a GE Friend 5 turbine?
Is there a pressurized constraint and a heat constraint?
The answer is today, the pressure that we're releasing the valve is 10 psi and under. However, we've already tested the valve up to 250 psi and see no reason that we can't get to 1,000 psi. The heat, for handling heat in certain applications, will stand the electronics further off of the valve to solve that problem. And it is equipped so that we can plug in additional cooling if it's required.
One more question right there.
For Mr. Truckway, does your process, can it eliminate invasive species in ballast water on ocean-going ships, and how does that compare in cost to existing methods?
The question is, can it prevent invasive species in salt water?
Can it kill invasive species in the water,
Okay.
ballast water of ships?
Can it kill invasive species in ships?
Yeah. Again, this is a very interesting area. What's being done today, among other things, there are electrochemical hypochlorite generators. They'll take very pure salt water, and they'll generate chlorine disinfectants that then get put into the ballast water. What our process will do is bring that water through the ballast water itself, because we're very tolerant of impurities. And we pick up reactive oxygen species, which are oftentimes much faster at killing than chlorine species. And they certainly complement each other because they go right in and destroy DNA. But we haven't tested beyond the protozoan stage in terms of, are we going to kill a fish or something that might be in there, because that's not our goal. Some of that is a filtration issue. Ours is the disinfection of the small species.
Looks like we're out of time. Let's again give another round of applause for the panelists. Okay, now it's time to have Alan reintroduce. I was so excited to talk about the competition coming up this September. Alan?
All right. Thank you, LG. This is very exciting. I think these companies are a fascinating example of some of the things that, if we think generally in terms of labels, it's clean tech, but really what it amounts to is we're talking about innovative solutions to problems that maybe aren't on the surface of every one of our minds, but these are serious problems that these entrepreneurs have found a customer, found somebody who has the problem, and they've developed a solution, and they've done a fabulous job. So I want to thank all of the winners. Certainly I want to thank the applicants from last year, because there were a huge diversity of innovative solutions. The reason we do this is really two things going on. Number one, I think as we've already seen from the earlier panel, entrepreneurs don't have necessarily an easy road to hoe to get in front of people that can help them, whether they be investors, possible business partners. So what we're trying to do is provide a forum where here in the Midwest we can do some of that. This is not the magic answer to all of it, but it's a step in the right direction. So we're hoping maybe some other people emulate us a little bit more. We're hoping that our competition will grow. The other thing that's going on is, again, we heard earlier, apart from the entrepreneurs getting in front of potential partners and investors, I think generally for us as the people of the Midwest, if you will, it's important for us to realize that we have in our midst some incredible innovative ideas that are below the surface, and they need to be brought up to the surface. So again, it's part of what we're up to. So down to the mechanics, actually this is on the website. It's a very simple process. We ask for a 2-page executive summary. And we ask for companies that are broadly in the clean tech space. And as you've seen from our presenters today, that represents a diverse group of industries within clean tech. But it all translates back to saving energy, conserving water, making a business more sustainable, a better measurement of energy, better utilization. So a company in that space that has a little bit of operational maturity. We ran this is our 3rd year now. In the first year, we wanted very, very early stage companies. In the 2nd year, we switched to a requirement that the companies have some operational maturity, that they be ready for a serious investment by either angels or venture capital. And that gave us companies that were a little bit better established and had a little bit more track record. And I think it was a better help for the companies themselves. The application is online. The applications are due by June 28. So there's still another 6 weeks to go. I would ask all of you who are involved with any companies that might qualify to consider applying. And I would also ask, if you know of companies that might be interested in this, to please let them know. I have a pocket of business cards. I'd be happy to hand them out to anybody who wants to talk more with me afterward. I think that's about it. LG, do we have anything more we want to add? I encourage you all to consider the competition. And of course, the best part of it is when you come to the Clean Tech Midwest Conference on September 14th, you'll get to see the 2011 finalists and meet the winners at that time. So, LG.
I would like to add, it's just a great way to put yourself before an international audience of investors, researchers, entrepreneurs, and other venture capitalists. Thank you. We'd like to conclude this program with Jim Naughton.
Thanks, LG and Alan. Thanks to all of our panelists and last year's winners. Very, very interesting, and I'm glad to see everybody's doing well in the last 6 months, and good luck to you in the next 6 months and years ahead. We will be wrapping up. I think we've run out of time, but before I do, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Again, to the people viewing the program over the internet, you can download the bios and the program materials, and we're also going to put a recorded version of the program on our website at usebrinks.com if you'd like to view it again or share it with your contacts. With that, I conclude. Thank you very much for attending.